Good afternoon to everyone joining us today. Thank you so much for attending today's presentation where we are going to be talking about outsmarting ransomware attacks. My name is Mary Owen and I'm going to be helping out our hosts today. They are Dziak, who is Arcserve's Regional Sales Manager for Wisconsin, and Gary Sussman, who is one of our principal consultants here at Arcserve. So as we're going through the presentation, we would love to hear your questions. I imagine you probably have a lot of them. So as we're going through, please send us your questions using the questions section of your interface, and we will answer those at the end of the event. Today's session is also being recorded, so we'll be sending out a recording of this that you can watch later or share to the email address that you registered with. So keep an eye out for that later today. And with all of that out of the way, I will go ahead and turn this presentation over to Jim.
Great, thank you so much, Mary. Welcome, everybody. I'm really pleased to have this opportunity to present this special edition of Arcserve to you, focusing predominantly on ransomware, something that's near and dear to none of our hearts. Recently, a survey said that ransomware is now the #1 security concern for organizations worldwide. So about Arcserve. Arcserve is a global leader in data protection solutions. What you're reviewing now is a worldwide customer base, over our sales presence, and industry recognitions. Rapid growth. Gartner recently reported that the industry of data backup recovery had grown about 5.5%. We're really pleased to present and report to you that Arcserve has grown over 28% in the same period. What differentiates us? Unified data protection and availability. Freedom of choice. Arcserve offers a software solution, the same software in our all-in-one appliances, and cloud solutions. We combine the ease of use that would be expected for a small, medium business, but including enterprise-class capabilities. Differentiators against key competitors include backup, replication, high availability, all within one solution. Industry-leading source-side deduplication technology, more comprehensive support for physical, virtual, cloud, and tape backup solutions. Many awards, as you've seen in the earlier slide. Enterprise-grade data protection made simple. Easy to say, very difficult to deliver. The things that we have to focus on today are recovery time and recovery point for all of the solutions that you have in place. Cloud, traditional tape backup systems, image-based backup, continuous high availability, restore. It gets down to how much data can you afford to lose and how long can you afford to be down. Current market challenges. Statistically, we're seeing that 30+% of workloads are moving to the cloud, that more organizations are doing hyperconvergence, and virtualization is seen everywhere. We're also seeing more ransomware than ever. Data is exploding. I saw a statistic the other day that said we've created more data in the last 2 years than all the years prior. Operating costs are under extreme pressure to reduce budgets. We see more data regulations and, of course, data sprawl, mobile users, and the value of data has gone up exponentially. And now we have the Internet of Things. What a wonderful addition to our already challenging and complexity. So something that we have seen that's occurred, current market challenges, continuing, ransomware has increased 4,000%. It's now estimated by the FBI as a billion-dollar industry. And we have a new player, and it's called stealth. We're going to talk about that a little more. 1 in 4 companies that pay do not get their data back. So one of the strategies organizations have used and continue to use is relying on backups. So therefore, an event like ransomware is a minor inconvenience as compared to a catastrophe. So in the event someone kidnapped your data, you would have a recent backup that you could recover from and basically tell the cyber criminal to take a hike. What we're seeing now, the new player, stealth, is actually a bot is being embedded in your data and as part of your backup. And at a set time that's coordinated with demands for payment, if you don't pay, your data will be erased without your knowledge until you go to recover. This is something that we're seeing on blogs now. It's a susceptibility that is applied to any and every backup system out there. But the key is testing. So, solution, perform frequent recovery points and test. And Gary is going to get into that architecture and technology that's offered by Arcserve. A couple questions you should ask. Does your organization have a policy document that details a response to cybercrime? The common belief, it's not if, it's just when. Compliance. Are you required to notify customers, stakeholders of a ransomware attack? Item 3, if your data is vulnerable to ransomware, can you guarantee that your data hasn't been hijacked, copied, in addition to being encrypted? 4, do you have a cyber insurance data loss policy? 5, does your company have a Bitcoin account? Statistics show that 1 in 5 companies have a DR policy. Less than 25% of those companies perform an annual DR test. 1 in 50 companies have a cybercrime policy. If your company is required by compliance, which includes ISO, PCI, HIPAA, SOX, etc., and or if your business does business with a public company, you fall under COVID. Now, if your data is encrypted, a data theft typically does not require reporting. From a recent survey, less than 42% of organizations recover their data from a ransomware attack. Most cyber insurance policies require security layers and practices with scheduled audits to comply with the claim. And Bitcoin is the standard method of payment, which leads us to, does your company have a Bitcoin account? Something to note is Bitcoin accounts typically take 1 to 2 weeks to set up, and most ransomware payment demands are within 1 to 2 business days. So a best practice insurance policy is to have a Bitcoin account established in the event your company would choose an only recourse to regain your data. Ransomware is a very competitive industry. There are now SaaS offerings for do-it-yourself novice cyber criminals. What do you need to know? 25% of organizations that are attacked again. Cyber criminals are part of a worldwide syndicate with 2 purposes: financial gain, and in certain cases, destruction of financial systems of targeted countries. Bitcoin has now emboldened a new breed of cyber criminals because Bitcoin can't be traced. Rogue employees, former employees, contractors could be participants in cybercrime. April, June 2016, top ransomware tools, Locky, Dridex, Rockloader, Pony, Gekatobe, Exploit kits include Angler EK, Neutrino, and Rig. There's been a 600% growth in new ransomware families since December 2015. 50 new ransomware families were discovered in the first 5 months of 2016. In April 2015 to March 2016, Kaspersky observed 136,000 attacks on Android users, 4 times the number in the previous 12-month period. And there's been a 230% jump in JavaScript attacks. Conclusion: ransomware will only grow in volume and continually adapt to technology. And at this time, I'd like to turn over Gary to present a deep dive of Arcserve.
Thank you very much. So let's begin. Let's talk about best practices on how to outsmart these ransomware attacks. But first, let's discuss how ransomware affects organizations. Basically, there are 2 common ways that organizations are affected with ransomware. First, websites, and also email. So as you see in this diagram, phishing spam emails can come in the organization, and employees without knowing may open up attachments, and this is how infections occur. Also, you may not know a website. You may go to a website and not know its content and access. Also, these malicious threats, and this is how these attacks get into your organization, and this is how they can take command and control and take over and ransom, encrypt your data. So it's important that we are aware how these events arise. And again, email and the internet are the common ways they come into the organization. So the first step I would recommend in prevention of these attacks is education. I always say knowledge is power, and this is exactly what we always tend to do on a quarterly basis to educate our employees, because as you see here, 97% of these attacks can be resolved with some of these best practices and education. So, email behaviors, making sure that people are aware of what attachments come into their organizations. They see attachments in their emails that doesn't look familiar, not to open it up. Obviously, best practices with passwords. You should always, make sure that they are long, at least 8 characters or more. You should always change them. I would recommend at least every other month, so that obviously they always change and safeguard access to your environment. Mobile security devices, making sure that they're secure. A lot of organizations, they have asset tagging, making sure that if indeed they get lost, they're available and can be accessed. Wi-Fi security, obviously the passwords, making sure that they're changed, and make sure you have like a guest network. A lot of environments with their wireless access routers and access points, they're allowed to create guest networks to isolate them from production. So that's definitely recommended. So education, understanding if you have rules, regulation, or ethics involved with your business is also a concern. So making sure that the organization is aware of these is very, very important. So education goes a long way in preventing these attacks from getting in. But if they do click that button, if they do go to those websites, the second best thing to accomplish is security. We recommend a multi-layer approach to security. Obviously, endpoint security with antivirus is great, but it can go more behavior to intrusion detection. It can be more host-based. So there's a lot of security solutions out there. So it's good to have a layer of defense when implementing these types of environments. Also, USB devices, whether or not to secure or not secure. USB is a common way of threats getting in. So a lot of organizations have isolated USB devices from their practice. So a lot of things to consider. URL, whitelist, blacklist. They're software that allow content distribution from coming in the organization by stopping your organization by accessing these different sites. So these are some of the security things to keep in mind that are available. Lastly, I would say with security is patching. A lot of vulnerabilities are inherent within our operating systems, our applications, etc. So it's good to have a common procedure for patching them, making sure that Windows are updated, that our definitions are always updated for our antivirus. So patching and having rules to define when and how often to do that should also be documented in an organization. Finally, the third and probably the most important and why we're here to talk about Arcserve is to have a solid backup and recovery strategy. Think of it like an insurance. You know, you wouldn't drive a car without an insurance policy. So we should protect our data. So our investment, we want to minimize our risk. So having a solution to prevent throughout a lot of recovery is very important. And so we can minimize these attacks and reduce our risk. So looking at the solution that you currently have, you may have to rethink your strategy. Maybe the solution you have today is not a way to keep your recovery point objectives, and also recovery point objectives. How often you do your backups may also change. So keep that in mind. We should always protect our sources, whether they're physical machines, virtual machines. One thing that Arcserve unifies is the protection of both in one interface. So protecting the data, however often. So that's another thing to consider. We can do backups every 15 minutes. So how important your data is should equate to how often you do your backups or your recovery point objective. Once we have a backup, we should have sort of a 3-to-1 strategy. Obviously, the local destination of backup is good, but let's say if that gets corrupted, we should have an offline copy, either local or in the clouds. We should have a local copy so that obviously, if indeed something goes wrong to the primary location, it's a faster recovery from that alternative local copy. We should also consider maybe offline copies or off-site copies, I should say. We have the capability to use tape or replication. Replication is a great way to be more proactive with that data and send it off-site. And so this 3-to-1 strategy of having the data protected, having an offline copy, and then remote is a great thing to follow. With the invention of virtualization, not only as a source, but we can also invest in virtualization as a way to quicken some of our recovery. We can use virtualization to do what's called virtual standby, where, yes, we have a backup maybe 15 minutes ago, but we can now convert that backup into that virtual host, whether it's VMware or Hyper-V. We can convert that recovery point into that virtual disk proactively with the solution today. So you may want to rethink, using hypervisors an easy way to reduce your recovery time objective, and also having another infrastructure that's isolated from these attacks is a great thing to think about as well. This last option about rethinking SLA, I sort of hit on. Again, reporting more backups may be needed depending on your environment, the type of data you have. If your business has critical data, maybe you should do backups more often to mitigate that risk in case if there's an attack. So, if you do backup daily, then that's the amount of risk that you have to lose 24 hours. So if you want to go back less than that, then you should do your backups more often to reduce, again, that risk. So increasing your recovery point objective, or RPO, is a good idea. So this is a first step in best practice in protecting the source, having that data protected now. We can then do things to be more proactive or reactive. With Arcserve, UDP, which stands for Unified Data Protection, we can, from the backup, as you can see here, provide replication. We can rehydrate that data because it's deduped, as you can see, migrate it to tape. So tape is still utilized today. The solution allows us to utilize tape and migrate our backups to tape for offsite Iron Mountain or DR. Also, you notice that locally we have an RPS. This is the backup server. We recommend a local backup server, so obviously it's quicker from an RPO perspective, but also from a recovery standpoint. Having a local presence, obviously the RTO is much more efficient. With Arcserve Unified Data Protection, you notice we can do global deduplication. So these physical, virtual, Windows, Linux servers, we can acknowledge unique data between them and just back up the data once globally. This is a great solution to, again, reduce your backup window, but also we can lower now the backup storage requirements on this RPS. RPS stands for Recovery Point Server. This is one of the components of Arcserve UDP. So whether you choose to use our software or appliance, the solution is positioned, again, to provide a backup local replication off-site, copy recovery point local for offline protection, as well as utilizing the cloud. So investing in cloud is another way we can, again, avoid the single point of failure, whether it's public, private, or even our own Arcserve cloud, which is our own subscription. We could provide another instance so we can replicate the data, again, to avoid that single point of failure. So let's discuss some case studies that we have. This first case study comes from a publishing company. They recently were attacked via a file. Someone opened up an attachment, a foes.zip or some kind of file, and a Bort virus infected their environment. Luckily, they had a previous backup performed early in that day at 7 a.m. So with that snapshot, they were able to again, recover their data. They also had near-line copy recovery points as a precaution offline. So in case the primary RPS did get corrupted, they had these copies offline. So this published company was able to reduce their attack and were able to recover their systems and their data. Matter of fact, the IT guy got a praise from the CEO from a job well done. The second case study is from a medical healthcare company. Again, they had numerous attacks happen. They were victims to several different attacks, but because they had a solution like Arcserve Backup and Arcserve UDP, they were able, again, to avert from having to pay $1,000 from these ransomware attacks. They were able to successfully recover their data. So again, having a solution to protect your investments is very important, and to be able to recover is equally important. So with that, what I would like to now discuss is some of the ways that Arcserve can protect and sort of recover from these attacks. So we talked about backups. So again, backup is our first primary tasks. Once we have a backup, some secondary tasks that we can do. First is copy recovery point. So as you can see here, task one is our backup, which we successfully done. Now we're choosing a second task. Copy recovery point, as you see listed here, what it does, it's again avoids that single point of failure. Any backup that was previously done on that primary data store is now copied to the secondary location. So proactively in this plan, we can consider now either another local disk or another share or even some cloud storage. We can connect to object storage clouds like Amazon and AWS. So again, now that we have a backup, we can now schedule what day to then send that copy to now that, again, other resource. So remember my 3, 2, 1. This is the second phase, and again, having an offline copy. We can utilize this copy recovery point, as I mentioned, to the cloud. We can utilize object storage cloud like S3 buckets or Azure buckets. We can do copy files. We can do archive tasks. Lots of capabilities, all from a backup, again, to avoid a single point of failure and to have this sort of long-term storage, sort of replace the tape if you really think about it. You can download recovery points. You can also upload recovery points directly from our interface. It's really that easy. So again, copy recovery points is our first way to sort of avoiding a single point of failure and having another resource now. If our primary gets, again, corrupted, we can, again, recover easily. One of the things I discussed earlier is using virtualization as a way to quicken some of our recovery time objectives. Whether it's VMware, Hyper-V, we can utilize, after a backup, those hypervisors by converting the backup into that virtual disk, whether it's VHD, with Hyper-V, VHDX, or VMDK files. But this solution can convert using this what's called virtual standby approach. As you can see, it's just another task. What virtual standby does, again, after a backup, it converts that recovery point to that virtual machine format. So imagine having now a powered off VM in your hypervisor from the backup that you just did 15 minutes ago. So in case there's now something get corrupt or happen, you can easily revert to that VM, power it on instantly. So again, whether local or maybe after replication, virtual standby can be used with VMware Hyper-V to convert that backup into now a working virtual machine. How cool is that? Being proactive and having a VM ready to come online, manual or automatically. As you can see, this instance, VMware was chosen as the hypervisor. So this hypervisor now will create a VM from the backup. We have a monitor server that will ping to make sure the resource is available. And again, we can convert the backup utilizing the hypervisor's data store directly. We can specify all attributes, even keeping numerous snapshots to choose in case of a disaster. So if there's a virus, we have 5 snapshots to choose from. We'll just choose the one that happened before. It's really that easy. The product makes it very easy then for users to then get redirected, dynamic updates, DNS is all taken care of. We also can use virtual standby to convert our backups into EC2 instances. So if you have an Amazon account, we can convert and utilize that account name and region as a DR method. So backup local, now Amazon has a copy of your data. It's really that simple. It's all about avoiding some point of failure and having some of these solutions available in case things happen. It's really easy to add your cloud account with AWS. Just simply add your account and your username and password, et cetera, et cetera. Now that solution is available to the Arcserve interface. We can also install the RPS in EC2 as well. So as you can see here, local on the left, we have our local RPS. That is where we have our backups done. Let's say deduplication is enabled. Let's say we get 80% savings because of a dedupe. Now when we replicate, we can now avoid the single point of failure utilizing an EC2 instance as an RPS. This is different than the object storage like S3 buckets. With that, the data is rehydrated, but with the RPS, as you can see, the dedupe is kept. So if we have 8% saved locally, you can then pass that savings now into cloud as well. And so step 1, backup. Step 2, replication. And now step 3, we can then do virtual standby to convert the backups into now working VM in another EC2 instance. So lots of flexibility depending on where or what you want to protect. We can even do in reverse. If you have data in AWS, protect it in reverse and replicate back to your primary site. So lots of flexibility to protect AWS utilizing that instance with virtual standby. Again, virtual standby is proactive to convert our recovery points into the hypervisor. Virtual Instant VM is a second approach of using a hypervisor. Instead of converting the recovery point into the virtual disk on the hypervisor, the recovery point server is where the change happens. So the actual backup session on the RPS you see in the center here is where the conversion happens instead of in the hypervisor. So let's say we pick a session 15 minutes ago. We can easily mount that as a VHD on the RPS. Then we have a Hyper-V server broker that directly. Just make sure that the next backup you pause, because obviously the recovery point server is being used as the virtual disk. So Instant VM is a very reactive approach, and again, creating a VM from a backup on the RPS directly. How cool is that? Again, you could be proactive with virtual standby, but if you don't have a proactive VM, you can then easily do instance VM as well with Arcserve UDP. So again, using our hypervisors is great. As far as a source, obviously it's a great investment, but we can utilize it from a recovery standpoint as well to quicken our RTO. We also can utilize what we discussed with Instant VM in Amazon as well. We commonly approach this with our Linux backups. So yes, the same recovery point servers that we do with Windows can also protect your Linux nodes. We can still replicate, and we can still bring up those VMs that are Linux-based just the same. So flexibility with Windows and Linux is a common thing with Arcserve. So we talked about backup. We talked about how we can safely recover. By the way, not only can we do virtual standby, we can mount a recovery point right from the data store, drag files out if it's available. We can also use an ISO disk to do bare metal recovery as well. So lots of options from a recovery standpoint. Now what I would like to discuss is, now that we have a backup and we're able to recover, how to be proactive in the sense of peace of mind, and we call that assured recovery. As you can see, assured recovery is another task, just like we did with replication, virtual standby. What this does, it now gives us basically peace of mind that, yes, our data is now sound, our data is now valid. How cool is that? How we can now schedule a task to make sure that backup is safe and sound. This is what the assured recovery task can perform. Basically, from the RPS where our backups or recovery points are kept, this task can either do instance VM, which can mount that backup to make sure there's no blue screens at death, or we can just mount the file structure to identify integrity in the file system. Either or, both are available, again, as a task. In this example, after a backup, we have a virtual standby. So again, we have a VM standing by as a second task. But now in task 3, we have scheduled every day to now mount that data. Again, we can select either instant virtual machine to utilize a hypervisor, or we can just mount that information to check just the integrity of the volume and file system. As you can see below, IVD, all we need is another server acting as a proxy where we can mount, and then that's how we test the structure. If you have a hypervisor, to more or less bring up a VM with the data to make sure it boots successfully, there's no blue screens at death, this gives you a little more flexibility, a lot more capability with IVM. So either IVM or IVD can be used, again, to perform the test of the backup, whether it's to run a file system test, run a check disk. You can even run a command to further test, let's say run SQL query, if you like, just this, again, to validate that data, to give you that peace of mind so you can sleep well at night. Even alerts are provided. So assured recovery is something that we are very proud of. We've added. We combine service level agreement reports. So from our dashboard or emails, you can, again, be aware of what's going on in your environment, making sure that now your data is backed up but successfully can be restored. So that's it from me. I'd just like to conclude. Again, it's great to have solution in place from a backup replication standpoint to protect your investments, but it all starts again with informing your employees on what to do, education. Again, knowledge is power, and of course, having security, having a multi-layered security practice is highly recommended. These 3 steps are ways you can, recover easily from these attacks that are out there today. Also, encryption, I would recommend the product. We have the capability to do encryption, whether in rest or flight. We support 256 AES-bit encryption. Replication is also included, so avoiding single point failure, copy recovery point. Again, these are all things to consider in the solution, again, to avoid the single point failure and easy recovery of data. Another thing to consider is the networks in which the data lies. It's good to, again, have security switches, managed environments, VLANs, isolations. Again, you may want to segment the environment so in case viruses do spread, again, you're isolating it. So make sure that your networks are secure, your username and password from an accounting standpoint as well. And again, patch and test often. So with that, I'd like to open up questions. Mary, are you available?
I sure am. Thank you so much, Gary. And we do have several questions here from the audience. Let's see. The first one, is my data safer if I use an appliance? Gary?
It all depends. Again, our product, we can do software and also an appliance. It really depends on whether they have, obviously, an infrastructure, server, memory. Software is the same software whether you install it or whether it comes with our appliance. So it really depends on the environment. If they have, server storage available. We have an estimator available online that you can type in, your storage, your growth rate, your retention needs, and what this estimator will do is show you what you would need from a server, memory, SSD, storage, and then you can make that decision. What the estimator also does is show you what equivalent appliance that you would purchase if you want to go that route. So it really depends on the environment. So it's in our customers' advantage to choose what's best for them. But as a vendor, we have the capability of offering both software or hardware. So the flexibility is there.
Very good. Yeah, and if anyone is interested in that estimator, you can speak with your Arcserve representative and they can get you the details on that. Let's see, next question. Can my backups be encrypted?
Yes, we actually just talked about that. So yes, when you create a data store with our product, which is pointing to the disk destination or in the appliance, you can encrypt that data store. So as a backup destination, anything going or at rest is protected. We support 256-bit encryption. Just don't forget your encryption password is all I say.
Yeah, that helps, right? Okay. Next question. Can you stop a ransomware attack if you catch it early enough?
Oh,
good question.
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, these infections promulgate the network. So the quicker you can catch it, the quicker it can stop from spreading. And again, we can be proactive by testing the data beforehand as well. And isolation, create segments in your network. Just don't have one flat network. You should have, hills and valleys, separations by department, by location, whatever it may be. So in case one segment gets corrupted, it's not, going across infecting. So definitely, prevention. But if it does get affected, catching it early does help tremendously. Yeah,
good advice there. Okay, we've got a question for you, Jim. So can you tell us how is UDP licensed?
Sure, Mary. So as Gary had mentioned, we have software and we have all-in-one appliance. So on the software side, there are two different licensing methods. One is socket-based with unlimited disk backup. So your backup size could be of any size, but the socket license is applied to the server for occupied sockets. There's some confusion there from time to time because people start getting concerned about number of VMs or number of cores on a processor. In our model, the number of cores on a processor is transparent. We are only looking at the occupied sockets. The other method is capacity license. Capacity license is just the opposite. So there, we look at the amount of disk or data capacity that you need to back up, and then it's unlimited devices or sockets. So two methods, priced differently. Now, on the all-in-one appliance, there is no distinction. All licensing is included, so it's unlimited. It's only based on the capacity size of your data and the appropriate appliance, as Gary mentioned a little earlier. So we have 4 appliance models. There are 2 form factors, a 1U and a 2U. Our 1U is designed to do 4 terabyte of backup capacity, backup on the device, but important to note is what Gary talked about, deduplication, because Arcserve does source level deduplication in addition to inline and in addition to global. The amount of data ratio is typically 80% savings. That's important, as Gary pointed out, also on a cloud service. Most cloud services are based upon capacity. So if we are deduping on the source side, i.e. premise, and sending that, then we're just sending the net. The largest appliance, 2U, is designed for 80 terabyte of local disk storage. However, the ratio of backup size or data size on the customer side is 240 terabyte. So in other words, if you had 240 terabyte of data, we expect that data with source side deduplication to be reduced to 80 terabyte or more. So the savings is just phenomenal, not to mention the performance. I hope that answered the question, Ray.
Yeah, you definitely did. And just to add on about deduplication, we often receive screenshots from our customers. So they like to show off their deduplication rates. I mean, it's often, anywhere from 70 up to 95%, which is always fun to see. So yeah, thanks for mentioning that. Let's see, I have another question. I have a Linux environment. Can I still be attacked by ransomware? Gary?
Yes, Linux is just acceptable. It's less, obviously, from Windows. Windows is just the more of them, but Linux as an operating system is just acceptable to these attacks as well. So don't get any confusion about that. You should protect all your servers, regardless of what operating system they are.
Absolutely. And one last question. User saying that they heard you mention VMware and Hyper-V. Do we protect other hypervisors?
Yes. With our product, we have a capability to do agent or agentless. We only can do agentless via the APIs that we have available, our partnership today with VMware and Hyper-V hypervisors. All other hypervisors and convergence, we can still do agent-based backups. And remember, as we deploy agents, there are no reboots required. And with each backup, we're only acknowledging the change blocks. And with our 4K source side dedupe, basically, we can, again, reduce that backup time and the storage that's required. So we can work with our agent on any hypervisor. We can only do agentless today with VMware and Hyper-V. Also to mention, we also can do hardware-based snapshots. So if you're specific on specific vendor hardware like a Nimble, HP 3PAR, or NetApp, we can directly orchestrate the backup via the array as well. So just keep that in mind. There's a lot of capabilities that UDP can offer.
Very good. That's actually all the questions that we have right now. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. So thank you again to Jim and to Gary for that great presentation and for sharing so much information and all of that research that you guys have done. It's very much appreciated. As I mentioned before, we did record this session, and so we'll be sending out a recording of it later today, so keep an eye out for that. It'll be coming to your email shortly. If you have any additional questions or if you'd like to get a demo, please do reach out to us at arcserve.com. On the site, you can download a trial directly. You can find our phone number so you can give us a call, or you can chat online with one of our reps. And with all of that, I will wrap up today's presentation. Thanks again for attending, and have a great rest of your day.